Hey guys, it's Kevin with my review for the most four recent episodes of Supergirl. Yes, I am still watching this show, but similar to all the other shows I watch, I just got really behind and I have not had time to review Supergirl till now. But I figured because there's been four episodes, it probably is a good time to start covering the show again. Let me just say right off the bat that I will tell you guys that so far I don't think this is the strongest season of Supergirl that we've had. Is this like Arrow season 3, Flash season 3 territory? So far, no. I think this is a good season. I'm liking what we're getting so far. These four episodes range from great to good, the last one kind of being eh. We'll get into that. But I want to talk about the first episode that we're going to talk about, which is episode 3, Far from the Tree. And this episode, I definitely very much enjoyed. I thought episode 2, like I said, was very strong. This episode really did continue that. Most of this episode, we focus on basically the juxtaposition of John's father as well as Maggie's father. As we know, John was called into Mars for an urgent matter, and we realize that they enter the remains of the Green Martian city, and Mehcad is waiting for them, and several other white Martians step out, and she introduces them, including Nikki and Tilal, and it turns out that there was recently a stormed a white Martian base where they kept Greens confined, and John points out he's the only Green left, and Mehcad says there's one more, and it turns out, holy shit, his father is actually alive, and this is a big moment for John. He thought his father was gone, he thought that, he wouldn't have to face him again, but we see his father, and his father, is very angry for abandoning him and think that their entire family had pretty much been destroyed, but, he had to go out on his own because, people just don't, again, they don't trust the Green Martians, and he had to find a way to, survive, and obviously, Moran, his father, he's not at all happy with what John has done. So John ends up leaving pretty much because he talks about how, he insists his son would have never really fled Mars, and John ends up leaving because of this, and he ends up telling the others what happened, and Talal says that, he'll invoke the right of Tiger and take the information by psychic force, but Talal says that they won't die doing nothing, and he warns that he'll never break his father's mental decisions, and they'll get through to his father before it's too late. He wants to prove to him that he can trust him and everything, and I thought this was definitely a very good central narrative because basically, at first things get really complicated, but basically John ends up taking them to his father's former house, and he asks how John dare him being there and slaps him. So again, he's really not happy about him at all, and his father tells him that he's broken him at least, and he will spend his last minutes praying for the ruins of his slaughtered family. But luckily, Kara is able to get through to him, and she has him confirm that she's a Kryptonian. She explains that she also comes from a dead people, and that she's also kind of been in John's position. I honestly really did like this scene, where she tells him how, she is part of, she's very much as much an outcast as John was, and she's had to learn how to survive, and basically the fighters give this staff to John, who shows it to Marin, and basically Tilal says that it's too powerful a weapon to have, and tells John and Supergirl to take it back to Earth and bury it. And basically he admits the underestimate Talal and asks Mehcad should he come back to Earth. She says their fighters there and they're closer to winning than ever before. They hug, and Supergirl pretty much asks what's gonna happen to his father now, and it turns out Marin is actually in the back seat. He looks around. John tells Supergirl that he couldn't have done without her. She assures him that he could have. She says that she'll see him at work the next day, and I thought this was a good central plot showing how his father wasn't very accepting, but now he is. I definitely really did like the way that was done. It felt a little bit underwritten to me, but I think we could have lasted at least one more episode with this plot, but I thought it definitely was well done for what they were trying to do. The other plotline dealing with this episode, I did think was a little bit too heavy-handed, because we focus on Maggie's father, Oscar, and he is, to say the least, not very accepting of his daughter, not accepting the fact that she's gay, not accepting the fact that she's getting married to another woman. He is just not accepting of that at all. And you see throughout this episode, she's doing what she can to try to convince him. Apparently their culture, he's not happy about, and this one doesn't really work as well, because he basically says he can't do it anymore, and He explains how he was beaten when he first immigrated to the United States, and the same people who beat him elected him sheriff, and Oscar endured so that Maggie would belong, and Maggie says she's accepted, and her father warns the only thing they hate more than a Mexicano is a homosexual. So basically, because of that, it's just a very much a red flag for her, and again, this one, like I said, just doesn't end as well, because he tells her that she can live any way she pleases, but he's just not going to watch, no matter what. He's been brought up this way, and it's understandable. I did think it was understandable. I just felt the concept was a little bit too heavy-handed, like, oh, we have the unaccepting father, and he's not very accepting of this, and he doesn't like homosexuals. I mean, I felt they forced that down her throat a little bit. I did like the way this ended, though, where basically she gives him the photo back and says he left her as a little girl on the side of the road, and basically tells her, look, if you're not going to be happy, then I don't want you at my wedding, stay the hell away. And that's basically what she ends up doing. And she tells Alex she can picture a life together with her, but there aren't kids in the picture. And it turns out, we go back to this subject, that Maggie tells her that her not wanting kids has to do with her childhood, because she had a very rough one, and she doesn't want to have the same situation with kids. And Maggie asks if Alex feels the same way, and Alex says that she does, and we'll come back to this in a little bit. But like I said, I thought this was a solid subplot. I didn't dislike it. I just thought it was a little bit too heavy-handed, but this was definitely a well-done episode for the most part. So now we're going to talk about the fourth episode, which is called The Faithful, and this to me was easily the strongest of the four, because it touched upon something we haven't really seen. It goes all the way back to the first episode. Remember when, Kara revealed herself to the world? Well, we go back to someone who was essentially on that plane, and ever since then, he's kind of looked at Supergirl as a cult figure of sorts, and I honestly really did love that. I thought it was something we haven't really covered before, and in a show that, often recycles very similar plot points, this was actually really cool, and seeing that this honestly did have a bit of an impact on Kara, because she doesn't know what to do. I mean, she's worshipped like Jesus, therefore she can't really do much of anything wrong, because everyone looks up to her as this amazing figure, and there's a lot that she has to juggle with because of that, and I definitely really did enjoy that. We get to this girl, Lena, who was going to commit suicide, but Kara ended up saving her because of it. So there's a lot of stuff here that she just, doesn't really know how to react to. And this one guy, Thomas, he's the one who basically has constructed this whole thing because Supergirl saved them, and there's this whole thing about this god, Rao, and he thinks that, Supergirl is part of that. So I thought that was definitely very interesting overall. And I did think this was, like I said, a well-done plot point, because she talks about religion on Krypton with James and how it was their community. And she says that Thomas's teachings are misguided and he only hears what he wants to hear. She wonders how she tells him that he just got lucky, and explains that Thomas knows that she's Supergirl. And James says that he met Superman as Clark, and Superman rescued him when he lost his footing on a bridge taking photos, and he prayed for someone to save him, and Superman and Supergirl actually showed up when people pray for help. And James tells Kara that she is just that. She's a miracle, and she got a part of her culture back, and he activates a shard, and a man appears as a hologram addressing the viewer. And I did think it was a very well done scene where, James is telling her that yes, she does give hope to people and that it is a good thing, and she ends up flying there and finds Thomas and tells him to stop the probe from exploding. And here Views saying it's become an instrument of destruction so she can deliver thousands to their ranks and reaffirm herself. And she insists that Rao is peaceful and would never ask his followers to endanger others, and he insists that they're doing what they're doing in service of Rao and Supergirl. So this goes to really violent measures fast, and she approaches the probe. She collapses in pain, realizes there's kryptonite actually inside of the probe, and she meets with him in prison, basically because, this guy's crazy. They have to take him to prison, and Kara asks if he's going to tell anyone who she is. Thomas says that he doesn't remember the name she used at the community center, and says that it isn't who she really is, and he tells her even gods can lose their way, and now Kara's pretty much at a crossroads, and he believes that Rao's purpose is to actually bring her back to peace, and he says that it's his salvation, not his prison, and he will pray to Supergirl and not to her. So I did think this was a very interesting thing we had going on, because it actually ends with her praying to Rao. So you do see that he sort of got her faith back, but this is a bit of a red flag. I mean, he does know her identity. Maybe it could come back to him one day. So I do like that this is out there, that we now have another person who knows her identity. He just kind of forgot. And I will admit, I thought that was a bit of a cop-out, the fact that he just kind of forgot what her identity is. But I don't think this is over. I think we might come back to this at some point. And I definitely really did like what we got here. That was definitely a very strong main plot. As well as what's going on with Sam. I actually am really liking the Sam character because she's trying to balance a bunch of things. You know, she's trying to be a mom. She's also trying to work at Catco, but she also has these powers in her. And you know, the whole episode is pretty much leading up to her seeing Ruby sing at her school, which the actress played Ruby really not a good singing voice at all. But I mean, actress-wise, she's fine. It's just singing-wise, really not that great. And you know, Alex, Lena, Carr, they're all there. Alex tells Carr they're inspired by Supergirl. They're not worshiping her. And Ruby sings her song. Alex looks sadly at her. She quietly goes up and gets up. And it turns out that Alex was really effective at this because she actually does want kids. And we know Maggie doesn't. And this is really starting to become a problem here. And again, like I said, I think this was, I predicted this was going to be the main thing that splits these two apart. And it seems that is the case because she wants kids and Maggie doesn't. And she's always going to want kids, and it's going to be a problem for both of them. So you really do see this starting to affect her. And the way this episode ends is very interesting. We see Sam in the bathroom. She suddenly hears voices in her head. She hallucinates this black figure appearing and tells Sam that one day soon she will reign. Hence, you know, being called Rain, of course, that's what her eventual name is going to be. So you're kind of setting up her starting to go and channeling that darkness in her. And we see this probe falls into the earth that explodes somewhere in an alien chamber. This tube activates and something inside starts to move. We don't know what that's about, but that pretty much leads us into the next episode. But I honestly really like this episode. There was a lot of great stuff going on here. It explored some ideas we haven't really explored yet in Supergirl, and I definitely really enjoyed that. So now we get to the 5th episode, Damage, and this episode I definitely really did enjoy. Most of this episode focuses on Lena, surprisingly, where basically Edge is threatening Lena. He's saying that Lena poisoned a bunch of these kids, and this really does kind of threaten her career. And Edge is a character that I think, you know, is very one note, but I think the actor playing him, again, like similar to the premiere, he's doing a really good job, and I am liking what we're getting out of him. He's just not going to be the villain. You know that Samantha is going to be the villain. We've already set this up, you know, and especially at the end of this episode, you know that they're definitely setting her up to start, you know, potentially becoming the villain of this season, which I think is, like, they already confirmed it's going to happen. I don't know if it's happening this season, but I hope it happens this season because I'm really liking the character, and I'm hoping she doesn't overstay her welcome. But like I said, most of this is focused on Lena. Morgan comes out, tells Lena that he's paying the medical expenses for the children. He talks about the Culver effect in colonial India and how it had unintended consequences. And Morgan says that Lena wanted to be a hero, and now people are simply paying the consequences. So Kara points out that Supergirl pushed the button, and Morgan says that Lena designed the tech and actually poisoned children, it turns out. So basically, you know, she's trying to do what she can to prove that this is not the case, but you can see that there's not really much she can do to prove that, and she admits that she does know if her device hurt children, and I like this. I like that she's unsure if this actually went down, and Kara hears a gun cocking. She spots the father, but only has a phone in his pocket, and a mother fires a gun, so Lena's career is really on the line here. My problem with this episode, though, is that you know nothing that bad is going to happen to Lena this early on. I mean, she just got this position at Catco. You know she's going to be fine, and you know this isn't going to have some sort of withstanding impact on her, which would have been cool. It's just, it's a little too early in the season to do something like this. I think, you know, in the middle of the season or even the mid-season finale, that would have been a good time to go into a plot like this. But in episode 5, when she just got this position, yeah, that's not happening. They're not just gonna get rid of her. I mean, Katie McGrath is staying as a main character all season, so they're not just gonna do that to her and strip her of everything. So we do get this good scene where she goes to Sam's place and finds Lena alone. She's drinking, and Lena explains that Sam is running L Corp and Ruby is at a friend's, and Carl wonders why Lena isn't fighting the charges. Why isn't she doing something about this? And she tells her that she did it, and all she wanted to do was good, and now she's a monster that poisoned children, and she just doesn't really think that she has much of a fight here. And Kara insists that there is definitely a chance she's innocent, but Lena tells her that's not the real world. In the real world, everything she does hurt people. And Lena tells Kara to stop believing in her because she's not worth it. And she ends up passing out, and Kara stays with her until Sam gets home. And they talk about Lena and how she wants people to think that she's tough. They both have been going through the public records. The sick children and kids are all basically from all over the city. And the women then hack the family's bank records. Sam hacking the files they were at Delaney's dumping truck for Oktoberfest. And basically, they go to the park where Oktoberfest was, and Kara secretly breaks the door open. She examines the pool with this like X-ray vision and sees lead particles in it, takes a sample, sends it to Wynn, and Wynn confirms it's a synthetic compound that when combined with waters exhibits the same properties as lead. And Lena starts at this name. They get this manufacturer called Leigh Chemical, but she then says that she doesn't know who it is. So again, there's not much evidence she has here. So she goes to Edge's office and tells him that she knows her own acres lease. She figures that Edge actually uses it to poison kids and incriminate her. And draws a gun on him. She says that when the mom shot at her, she knew that she was right, deserved to die. Edge tells her she needs help, and Lena says she's thinking like a Luther, and Aide then knocks Lena out from behind, and Edge is then monitoring the entire thing we realize from the ground, tells his aide to create a little turbulence, so she sends a distress call. He quickly jams the signal, and he tells his aide to like release the sequence, and basically, she manages to stop the barrels from dropping while Supergirl flies the plane, closes the ramp. Edge tells his aide to crash the plane. One engine blows out. The plane splits in half from the streets, and Lena falls into one half, the chemicals into the other. Supergirl warns she can't hold both. She yells at Lena to climb out of his half, and she jumps the final distance. Supergirl grabs her just as the plane basically half breaks away, so she just makes it. But again, you know she's not going to die, so that's why this didn't have as much of an impact. But she goes to Edge's office and tells him that he's lower than she expected. And basically, he tells her that, Morgan suggests that the men must have really hated Lena. And asks Supergirl what that kind of hate feels like. He doesn't think that Supergirl is simply capable of it. And says that that's the real world. And he says that if he had an enemy, that he would crush her without mercy. He says that if Supergirl thought he was her enemy, she could kill him. But she doesn't really have what it takes. And Supergirl says nothing. Edge tells her to leave the way she came. And I do like the way that Edge is still out there. I'm liking this villain. But to me, so far, he seems kind of like a Lillian Luthor, where he is an ancillary threat, but he's not like the main threat, and I'm hoping they don't do something like that, what they did last season. I'm hoping that when Samantha does become the main villain, that, it's not as late in the season as it was with Rhea last year. I do like the way this ends, though, where we see that basically, she realizes that she did in fact get shot at a at the press conference, and she was completely unharmed, so she really starts to realize that she definitely does have these abilities, so I thought that was really cool. And then the rest of this episode pretty much focuses on Alex and Maggie, and I mean, we knew the way this was going to go. Maggie, she doesn't want children, but Alex is very firm in the fact that she does, and that's something that's never going to change. She's always going to want children, and because that, her and Maggie unfortunately can no longer be together. Again, this was very predictable. I really was not that surprised with the direction they took this in. They don't really go anywhere else with it. That's the thing. I was hoping they'd go somewhere else, but they really dragged this out. And again, you knew very well that these two were not going to last. You knew very well that they were going to have complications here. So I don't understand why they dragged this out. It's already been confirmed that Maggie is leaving, so I don't really understand why they dragged this out here. And that's basically how this episode ends. So now I do want to talk a little about the 6th episode, Midvale, which honestly, guys, I really didn't like this episode all that much. And again, it's mainly because I didn't really see the point of it. The whole episode is focusing on Kara. She's taking Alex home basically to get away from her, her sort of mourning her and Maggie's relationship and trying to get over it, while Kara's also trying to get over Mon-El. But the thing is, we don't focus on that for most of the episode. You would think that that'd be the main selling point, but that's not what this episode's actually about. Most of this episode focuses on Alex and Kara as teenagers, and we're kind of shown when Kara started to become more aware of her abilities and how this almost had a huge impact on her. The thing is, though, we already know this. This is not something that is new information to us. We've already known that Alex and Kara didn't really get along as well at first, and Alex eventually warmed up to Kara. And let me just say, the two actresses here, Isabella Vidovic and Olivia Nikkanen, they really do save this episode for me. I thought these two actors actually portrayed the roles very well, especially Isabella Vidovic. She looked pretty much just like Melissa Benoist. They did a very good job with that casting. But honestly, all this episode pretty much amounted to me is that they needed those 23 episodes. They just kind of put this episode in there, and that's really it. It was nothing but a filler episode. The ending, we don't really get much of it anywhere. Alex is just, thanking Kara for being there for her, and it just makes me question what the whole purpose was. The whole point of the episode was for her to get over Maggie, and we don't see any of that. We barely see any scenes of that happening. Most of the episode focuses on them as teenagers, and I just didn't really care. Honestly, I just didn't really care much about their overall relationship, so it just really didn't do much of anything for me, unfortunately, and it sucks because I do think there were some really interesting ideas here. I just didn't really care that much about their overall story. We've seen this 1,000 times, and it just didn't do really much of anything for me. So overall, guys, like I said, these 4 episodes really are kind of ranging from good to great, except for the last one, which I really was not a huge fan of. But there are definitely things I do want to talk about. First of all, I want to talk about where we're really going to take all of this Rain stuff, because it's clear that Sam is starting to become aware of her powers. It's really starting to become a bit of a detriment to her, and I think throughout the next few episodes, she's really going to start to become aware of them. The mid-season finale is called Rain, which only makes me think that she is going to become the villain very early on, which I'm fine with. I'm just hoping they don't really rush this. I'm really liking Odette Annable so far. I think she's doing a great job on the show, so I really do hope they portray this in a very, in the right kind of pacing. I'm liking the way they're doing it so far, so I'm looking forward to seeing really where all of that is going to go. As far as things go with Alex, I don't know where Alex goes from here, because obviously Maggie's no longer on the show, so what is Alex's purpose going to be moving forward? I never really loved the Alex and Maggie relationship. I think the two had good chemistry, but to me, it always seemed quite rushed. I never was the hugest fan of it. I liked their chemistry. I never loved them as a couple, so I'm not really going to miss Alex and Maggie all that much. I really like Florina Lima on the show, though, so it is definitely sort of I definitely am going to miss her a little bit. I think definitely it is a bit of a loss to the show, but I'm sure the show will be able to move on from it, so we'll have to see the way that really does work out for the most part. And then, really, that's kind of it. I do like that Edge is still out there. I like that he does have this knowledge, for Lena and things like that. And mostly, I like that they're keeping people around. They're not just killing them off like they did last season. I like they're keeping these stories around because they can very much bring them up again later into the season. This can come to fruition at some point. The fact that Edge, he has this knowledge about Lena, he can use that against her. Edge is far from over yet. You also have the character of Coville out there, and he can use his knowledge against Kara, so there are a lot of possibilities for where they can really take this season. I'm very interested in seeing really where all of them do go. But now, guys, I'm going to rate each episode as a whole. So for Season 3, Episode 3, Far From the Tree, I am going to rate that episode a B+. For Season 3, Episode 4, The Faithful, I'm going to rate that episode a B+ as well. Easily the strongest of the 4 for me. Season 3, Episode 5, Damage, I would rate that episode a B. Like I said, some really cool ideas. I just thought the whole plot happened just a little too early into the season. And the most recent episode, Season 3, Episode 6, unfortunately, I'm going to give that episode a C. But overall, guys, that's it for the 4 episodes of Supergirl. I am now officially caught up. Thank God. I have been wanting to be caught up for a long time now. But let me know what you guys thought of these 4 episodes. Love your thoughts. And we only have 3 episodes left for this half of the season, which is pretty crazy. I mean, they always go by quite fast. But I will see you guys in my next video, which will definitely be for The Flash. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.
It's so lonely when she's not